So good afternoon, everybody. We are now live in breakout session number 2, Unleashing the Veteran Entrepreneurial Mindset. This breakout session is starting right now at 12:50 and will continue to 1:30. Heads up that after this breakout session, we have another networking break in the afternoon lounge, so you'll want to go to the lounges area to see that. But without further ado, let's get started with this breakout panel. I'd like to introduce our moderator, Vivian Greentree from Fiserv. She is Senior Vice President and Head of Global Citizenship over there. Please take it away.
Thanks, George. And yeah, really excited to welcome everyone to today's breakout session, Unleashing the Veteran Entrepreneurial Mindset. I am Vivian Greentree. I'm the head of corporate citizenship at Fiserv and lead our global efforts on associate and community engagement, diversity and inclusion, and strategic philanthropy, because we know that those areas, when coordinated and aligned, create high-performing teams like we're used to in the military environment, where everyone can say, I am a valued member of a winning team doing meaningful work in an environment of trust. And we've learned a lot of that from our engagement with the veterans and military community. Our Fiserv Salutes programming, we know that the military experience itself is one that drives both diversity and inclusion through meritocracy. It drives trust and creativity, which we'll talk about today, and really commitment to the mission and grit, which, being from the South, there's grit and then there's grits. So we're talking about the resiliency grit today. But the veterans that are on the phone and on the session today are innovators and they're leaders because they've had to be. And I would add military spouses and military children in there too, as it's the month of the military child. And we know that veterans provide solutions to our most complex business problems and look for creative ways to overcome challenges like Marco did today, from dialing in from a remote location due to his reserve duty. But completing challenging tasks with limited resources and short time frames with limited information and budget comes naturally to this set. And as a Navy veteran myself and a military spouse, my husband just retired last year, the gap year we call the COVID year. But every day, I'm lucky. I mean, I know how lucky I am and how privileged I am. And I know when we were doing the training session with this group, the sentiment was roundly that we all know how we enjoy the positions that we have now and want nothing more than to expand opportunity, access, exposure, connection, networking, solutions to others coming after us. So without any further ado, I wanted to go to Marco first to start off. In your position at the VA, you work with veterans who experience PTSD. In your experience, do you find these veterans can thrive and do thrive while self-employed? And what do you see as some of the benefits and challenges that they experience? And give us some of the insight into some of the VA support for veteran entrepreneurs overall, like some of the resources. I think you had a one-pager you were going to share afterwards about VRAP or the ASDBU.
Yeah, definitely. Can you hear me okay?
We can hear you.
Okay.
Comms check, yes.
Great. I apologize again. I'm operating a little bit remote today, as was mentioned. But yeah, thank you again for the invite and to be included in this panel. So like was mentioned, I work in my civilian career at the VA. I'm a mental health counselor. And so I certainly interact on a daily basis with veterans family members. And, I think addressing the issue often of the challenges of reintegration, right? And that ranges from veterans that have recently separated to Vietnam veterans often that I see, and occasionally even veterans of older generations. So I think readjustment and reintegration can be certainly a lifelong challenge. But I often talk with the veterans that I work with about how can we cope with what you want to focus at in the present, and what are the things that we need to do to keep you focused in the present. And one of the things that definitely always is, I think, a help is do they have goals? And often, for particularly younger veterans, they are vocational goals and entrepreneurial goals. So I think those can be a tremendous strength often to leverage for veterans is what are those goals, and tying in obviously all the skills that they have from their military experience. I'm sure this panel will talk a little bit about the importance of the sort of highlighting your soft skills, right, and the skills that you learn in the military that aren't just related to your MOS or to your specific branch or job. So I think that's of key importance is identifying what mechanisms do you have to be able to cope, and understanding that readjustment and reintegration can in some cases be a lifelong path, but that it is something that is certainly feasible to obtain significant success, whether it's in entrepreneurial pursuits or in other pursuits of life, regardless of what one's experiences were specifically during the military. And yeah, it was mentioned the VA does have some great resources out there. From a training standpoint, obviously there's the suite of the whole GI Bill type benefits and resources that I would hopefully encourage any veteran to take advantage of if they're eligible for. Obviously, the one interesting one too that's being sort of rolled out now is what was mentioned as VRAP, and I'll put in the chat here in a moment. It's an interesting sort of was around actually in the past, and they're kind of from sort of it being in a dormant status for a while, lining it with the COVID-19 pandemic relief. But it allows another opportunity to seek education, particularly in certificate or programs that are focused at high tech, and so there are, I think, opportunities there for entrepreneurs. And I'll put in a link in a second. There's a list that was put out recently by the Department of Labor of high demand occupations, and you may see career fields that you have interest in there. And right now the VA is still in a sort of stage of rolling this out, so it hasn't actually been something that veterans can access yet, but it will be shortly. And then the Office of Small and Disadvantaged Businesses Utilization, that's a VA office. It's kind of managed centrally, and it has a plethora of resources. I'll put the link here in the chat in a moment too, not only for veterans to connect to, but also for veterans that are maybe involved in entrepreneurial pursuits and want to be able to work for the VA, whether it's selling their product or their service. It can be a great in there as well. And there's newsletters and all sorts of other materials too that the Office of Small and Disadvantaged Business Utilization has. So I think that's a roundabout way to maybe hopefully answer some of those questions. Back to you.
Yeah, that's a great start. And I know, the Secretary McDonough is also, as I was on a call this morning with the SBA. So Robert, you're coming up next. We can see you. Saw that from one federal agency to another. But the restaurant relief funding and specifically ensuring that veteran entrepreneurs in the restaurant and food industry are aware of the relief that the SBA will be administrating. So Robert, with more than 25 years experience in business, both on the at a Fortune 500 company, but then also your own company, and now at the SBA, I think you're kind of a trifecta. If you sing, I think you would be a quadruple threat. But what do you see as the biggest challenges for veteran-owned businesses, and even just if you want to even pick one of each, like from the Fortune 500 to engaging them, from a small business owner engaging with the Fortune 500, or a small business owner engaging with, like Marco just said, a federal agency in the procurement process for federal, state, or local.
Yeah, I think that's a very interesting question. And thank you. First of all, thank you for allowing me to be part of this distinguished panel. I guess the biggest challenge, no matter what level you are, if you're looking for contracting as a pathway, it can be overwhelming. The beauty about veteran entrepreneurs is that they're used to obstacles. I mean, who amongst us has not been through an obstacle course? I mean, we're used to overcoming obstacles, and you gotta learn a little bit. You gotta be familiar, and then try it again. And I think in contracting, just in general, government contracting, state or local, it's such an overwhelming task. And I think we have to think back to our veteran days, our military days. How do we attack the OC? it's breaking it down to bite-sized pieces. It's getting mentorship. And I think there's a lot of people on the panel right now and people who've been on the program all day. There's a lot of help out there. So start somewhere. I don't know anybody that I've listened to, and I've been associated with a lot of people on the panel today, where if you go to them, start with them, you get a relationship going. And if you exceed their capacity for helping you with your particular endeavor, then they will refer you to, hey, you know who else you should see? Go see these folks. I work with a small business administration, and it's a monolith. It's huge. The website is almost overwhelming. And where do you start? And even if you drill down to the veteran resources, let's face it, the SBA in general, it's all about helping businesses get started, grow, expand, and overcome disasters like we're in right now for many business owners. But I guess my point is, start somewhere. You'd be shocked at how many great resources there are, especially as a veteran, when you want to get into and leverage your veteran status. Maybe you're service disabled, maybe you're not. Maybe everything's just great, but there are ways you can leverage your veteran status. And it depends on where you are. I don't know who's listening to us here or participating, but there are virtually every state in the union has different kinds of opportunities, whether it be New York City, where there are people at work for you looking to help you get certified in some capacity at leveraging your veteran status. New York State's one of the few states in the union that has an actual set aside if you're service disabled. So I won't go into more detail than that, but the point is, start with, if you start with the SBA, there are resources available, whether it be our resource partners like SCORE or small business development centers or our veteran business outreach centers. No matter where you are, they're just a click or a phone call away where they can help you get started on figuring out what you are authorized to access and how to best leverage your veteran status. So, I said a lot, but bottom line is start someplace, stick with it, and then don't be afraid to branch off and bring in more collaborators and helping you get what you want. Listen, we are all veterans. You are veteran entrepreneurs. People want to help you. And I think if you just recognize that and put it on your collar when you go in to get help, it's going to be a great asset for you.
Yeah, and that's one of the things I know that came up when we were doing our practice session as well, was that it's important to know that those are free resources and don't cost any, going to the SBA's website, going to the VA's website. I also, since we're throwing out websites, have to throw out veteranbusinesscoalition.org, which is something that Fiserv funds, also free to members. But it's where small veteran and military spouse owned businesses can go for free resources. It's through the Institute for Veterans and Military Families at Syracuse University, and includes public and private partners, because and that's, James, as we head over to you, I have to plant a flag for the private sector as well, knowing that our strategic sourcing, our supplier diversity is billions upon billions, and knowing that that's something that you're helping to coordinate the public-private engagement for New York. But also, because it's kind of a two-part question, again, because of your background as you starting your own business and running your own business, and the risk and rewards that are involved in that, which you've experienced personally, and then now as the commissioner for New York City Department of Veteran Services, it's one area that you help facilitate. But I think that you have a great vantage point to see what's going on, and when you're giving advice to aspiring entrepreneurs or the companies who want to do business, or the agencies that want to do business with veterans, like, how do you advise, any one of those three audiences or all of them?
Well, first off, thank you so much for that question, Vivian. And I just want to, say thanks again for allowing us to be here today, and just really want to give kudos to not only the sponsors of this event, but also to, the Vet Indexes for just making this thing happen as far as the conference right now. In response to your question, as far as, what one should consider when just approaching, starting a business or getting into the space, I kind of take it three different ways. First thing I tell people is, talk to people. Just legit get out of your typical comfort zone of this whole thing you have in your head. And don't just talk to your wife, your husband, your mom, your dad, your kids. Like, talk to people. You know, for a while before doing this job as commissioner for New York City's Department of Veteran Services, you know, I was at an incubator for veteran entrepreneurs. That incubator was is still in a engineering school, because entrepreneurship is a science experiment at the end of the day. You have a hypothesis, you test that hypothesis out, and then you take the data from that test and you say, okay, I want to make a pivot and adjust the hypothesis. All that is one big feedback loop where a business is simply constantly seeing, is this problem solution fit there? Is their product market fit there? And so to best, you know, get to the bottom of that, you've got to talk to folks. I used to give people a book by Gift Constable called Talking with Humans, you know, because it's we take for granted how folks who have been able to do all sorts of things and accomplish multiple feats in the military, or, you know, not just as a serviceman, but also as a spouse, yet who may be afraid to just talk to folks to get that feedback loop going so they can sharpen the axe on whatever they're to do. That's the first recommendation. You know, the other recommendation I say is, you know, this is a group of military spouses and of service members, mostly, and those who support the community who are here in this discussion. Leverage your veteran identity. You're not in this alone. You are in the foxhole with multiple people and organizations, not just the people who are all speaking on the panel, but the lots of different groups that care so much that you do well, that you succeed. You know, just naming a few. And there's a laundry list. You've got, you know, the Small Business Association. You've got the Institute for Veterans Military Families. You've got Bunker Labs. You've got NYU's Veterans Future Lab. There are various veteran chambers of commerce all over the country that are regional specific. I know there's one for New Jersey. I know there's one for New York. You've got Patriot Boot Camp. You've got the various municipalities that have special efforts that involve dealing with veteran business owners. So just, you know, leverage the equity that you put forth by being in this community. Bring the chips to the table and cash in as best you can as you try to elevate what you're to do. And then the last thing I tell people, and it's important for this crowd, is, you know, do not be afraid. Oftentimes we let the perfect be the enemy of the good. So the fear masks itself either in the form of, I've got this great business idea, but I want everything to be perfect before I press play. It's either that, or I've got 1,000 ideas going on in my head. I'm going to try to do all of them at once, and I may do none of them. And so when I say don't be afraid, it's pick the thing that's going to be your value proposition. Say, this is what I'm going to do. I know it's going to be a work in progress. I know it's going to be an experiment. It's a Confucius quote, "The man who moves a mountain begins by carrying away small stones." It's not this massive task. It's a series of baby steps where when you pan back, the baby steps taken together wind up producing a very, very good thing if you will not be afraid and just take that first, you know, foray. So, you know, that's just my thoughts there.
No, that, I mean, I think that's something, even when we talk about veterans transitioning into employment at in larger organizations, that, you know, networking is not something that maybe comes naturally. And it's funny because my husband transitioned last year. I've only been in the military space for 15 years, you know, as an advocate, and I kept telling him, you know, you're eminently qualified, and just like, but it's leveraging your network. Your network is your net worth, whether you're trying to get a job or start a business. And I also heard recently on a transitioning, you know, panel that if veterans or if military connectedness was a country on LinkedIn, it would be the second, you know, largest populated country in the world. And I think, right. And so it's like you're saying, you never go into battle alone, and you're not starting this business on your own. And so Wes, you know, now having heard from several resources at the state and local and federal level, you know, as a veteran entrepreneur, a very successful veteran entrepreneur, you know, tell us a little bit about just that experience. And I mean, how do you sift through knowing that, you know, you have this buffet to pick from based on geography and industry and where you are, and start, thrive, grow, or whether you want to do, and something I also want to hit on that I was taking notes on is, you know, deciding maybe whether you want to be go for federal or state or government contracts, or whether you know, again, I have to highlight the private sector supply chain. But, you know, from your perspective as the coolest dad ever,
Yeah, yeah.
Did anyone else see that?
You know, I hold the
Had to
Coolest
ask
Award
though,
and
yeah.
the Worst Award, unfortunately.
Right?
So, well, you know, I basically want to just take what James said and just put it on repeat because I like what
I
he
want to
said.
start a
So,
business now.
and the two ones that two statements he made that really resonated with me is network. Like I never used any of the resources out there because I was just too busy not screwing up the business. And you know, it'd been nice to probably know about that, but a lot of times when you're in the middle of the fight, you don't realize you got support. And you know, I was just always an idiot and had my head down too much. So definitely network, go on LinkedIn. Like people reach out all the time to me and just basically cold call me. You know, and that happens. And is it annoying sometimes? Well, not really, because you know if you're reaching out and you highlight, hey, I was in the service, I really want to get into your guys' business, your space. You know, I pretty much always respond to everyone. Like, why not? And I think there's a lot of people in our community, and there's 4 of them on my team. Like, there's only 11 of us, and 4 of us are veterans, and we're all different. We all have different experiences. I think every single one of us, if you reach out, if I can't answer your question, you know, I'll punch you to Doug or or Pat or whatever. So networking is a big thing for sure. And then the other thing James said that I think is really important, because I've been grinding up the hill here for 10 years now, and we're finally kind of quote unquote made it, after eating ramen noodles for a long time. But that analogy he highlighted about, if you want to climb that mountain or build that mountain, it basically just starts with like picking up little stones every day. And so I think that's the most important thing to know about if you're going to be an entrepreneur. You can have all the resources in the world, you get all the help in the world, but just like anything in life, you just got to start grinding and just do one step after the other. Wake up, try your best, and also to James' point, have focus and have a value proposition, and eventually it will work. You might get smacked in the face a million times, but if you just don't quit and keep grinding, eventually people will say, God, this person's annoying. Let's just pay him off and give him a contract, or get this guy out of here. So anyways, just keep grinding and do everything James said. And then as far as like resources beyond the ones that all these gentlemen are mentioned here, it seems, because I don't really lean on the resource network that much anymore. It never really have, but how people reach me, it sounds stupid, but like on Twitter. So like there's a huge, we're in the finance business. On Twitter, there's actually a huge community. It's called FinTwit. And a lot of people are actually veterans actually in our community. And just, send me a tweet. Like, I used to be in the Marine Corps. So anytime someone responds like, oh, like, hoorah, devil dog, or semper fi, like, I have to respond. It's just like a gut reaction. And then I'll start a conversation. It's just is what it is. It's pretty open on Twitter, right? You respond, anyone will respond back to you because it's an open platform. So it sounds crazy, but go on there and just start, communicating with people that you want to network with. And then obviously the other one is LinkedIn. LinkedIn's a lot more professional because you can actually sort by, tag, the Army or Marines or whatever it is, your business. And people hit me on LinkedIn all the time. And again, it's unfortunately COVID, the third part of the face-to-face networking is a lot more difficult these days. But people ask all the time, can I visit? Like before COVID, obviously, even I would say yes now because I got vaccinated. But in general, pretend COVID wasn't here. People ask like, hey, can I just stop by and introduce myself? And I'm like, well, yeah, why not? Come on by, we'll shake hands. Because just that human contact, it just seems important, even in a day of all these WebExes and Googles and Zooms. So, that's all I got. Nothing really new except do what James said.
That can't be all you've got, because I have many more questions. But because we do have a lot of employers. So, Vet Indices is for companies that have, military engagement programming, whether it's for employees, communities, entrepreneurs. So kind of, for any and all who, from the panel who would like to answer, how would you And then I have opinions as well, shocking. But how can large companies, Fortune 500s, or even mid-sized companies get involved in the military entrepreneurship ecosystem and support it? Because there's a lot that even, in addition to which, procurement pipelines or strategic sourcing, supplier diversity programs, there's payment terms. So for example, Fiserv, we have a commitment to pay all small diverse vendors with contracts under $5 million and net 30. We have a business directory that all of our employee resource groups use to encourage P-card spend at the local level. So if we have an employee resource group that's having an event, if it's a woman-owned business, that's catering, or a veteran-owned photographer. So because there's really big, and then there's, kind of tactical at the local level. And I don't think that there's either or, but it's and. And so, and then it's also supporting, veterans and military spouses who might have full-time jobs and have this side hustle that they have, where they are building that mountain one pebble at a time, and how to engage and support them. Do you want to like round robin it, or anyone want to go first with input?
Well, if I could just chime in here, I might be the oldest person on the panel, so I have a lot of sort of stories that I've seen and things developed. So I'll be very brief, but regarding the employers that are on, a couple of comments on this area of discussion. Number one is, every growing company, every exciting company has a story, has a social mission. So why wouldn't you want to, as part of your corporate mission, adopt a policy of seeking out and utilizing veteran-owned businesses, minority-owned businesses, et cetera, for your supply chain and your subcontracting? I mean, I would think that would be part of the narrative you'd want to show the world as what you're following. I mean, as a veteran yourself, if you are, it just makes a lot of sense. But even if you're not a veteran, why wouldn't you want to make that part of who you are as an organization? And secondly, as far as the benefit of not only using vendors and collaborators in your business, but also if you have employees and you actively seek getting veterans on board, why wouldn't you want to promote a culture of entrepreneurship? All these men and women who are coming to work with you as employees, you've got born and trained leaders.Maybe they weren't born, but they were developed into leaders, no matter what capacity they were in the military. You have people who are problem solvers. It would definitely benefit any organization to spend a little bit of time on leadership development in-house to make all these people, or to help them become entrepreneurs, so that they can accomplish even greater things within the organization. And if they flourish and decide to move on, so be it. But you've added to the ecosystem of veterans becoming successful. So those are just a couple of comments I would have.
If I could jump in, if I could jump in on this, just and I think that's a great comment too about entrepreneurship and in general, Rob. I just got to say that, just speak to the large firms, how they can play the game of being supportive of military entrepreneurs. A couple of things. I got to call out what you do, Vivian, as far as the Coalition for Veteran-Owned Businesses, which we see it through Institute for Veterans and Military Families, but Fiserv is the main backer of it. I think that's an excellent platform for large firms that are looking to, deal with vetted businesses at a large level. If you want to make those connections, I believe that is a great platform for the larger firms. Another piece of this, because that's speaking of just procurement. If we talk about this in terms of investment, I think you should be mindful, if you have a large business, of some of these venues through which investment in veteran-owned businesses is held paramount. I think about things like, the largest veteran business battle in the country is run through Rice University out in Houston. It's called the Veteran Business Battle. That's a great place to go to see new innovative talent that is coming, that's on the cusp of really going viral. And another one is, I think about the Penn Fed Foundation, the Veteran Entrepreneur Investment Program. And so if you think about it from procurement perspective, there's that Coalition of Veteran-Owned Businesses. If you look at it from an investment perspective, you've got things like that Veteran Business Battle, like the Penn Fed Veteran Entrepreneurship Investment Program. If you're thinking about mentorship for the large businesses, of course, look at Bunker Labs. Great national platform, looks to be the quickest nonprofit in America to have a footprint in 50 states. and it's an excellent organization. Someone who has a business and who's come through Bunker myself, as far as going to events and receive mentorship from them, can't speak highly enough of them. So for the larger firms, I bucket it into this idea of procurement, of investment, of mentorship. For the small firms, you can take all that advice the large firms have. Things I have to add to it for the small firms. Look through local directories of veteran-owned businesses and disabled veteran-owned businesses. New York and New Jersey are among the 14 states in this country that have statewide programs that provide certification and special, benefits and goals for veteran and disabled veteran-owned businesses. You can be a private sector company and look through those rosters to see who is there in this state, in that state, in this state, in this state, just as one start point for the small businesses. Another one for the small businesses, your local chamber of commerce. Many local chambers of commerce, we're here in New York City, Brooklyn has this, a Veteran Business Affairs Committee, have a set committee or subcommittee focused on veteran entrepreneurs. If there is one in your local chamber, that's great. If not, start it. And it's fine to start it and not be a veteran business yourself. You'll do well by doing good if you do it. And if you cast that light, a lot of people will come to the light. So I'd say the local chambers of commerce. And then last one, this is for the small and the large. Get into the game of mentoring a veteran, period. Many people, I started a small business based on my experience as an employee in another company. Many entrepreneurs will take the leap from saying, I worked for this person, now I want to stay in the same space and be the captain, be the admiral, be the general myself. And so great programs like the DoD has its Skill Bridge program, where you can have an active duty service member work for you, either in a hybrid way, either in person or all remote during their final months of service. There's several other ways through which you can even look at any student veterans at your local university. Do what you can to kind of bring that next generation in with the employment hat on first, recognizing many of the employees will become self-employed themselves, have their own side hustle, and maybe that next titan of industry. So I think that's a very good way to seed mentorship of the next generation of veteran entrepreneurs. Just some thoughts.
Like I want to join your team and just charge in there with you, James. And so to pivot a little bit because of on that and just kind of the camaraderie and the network, whether it's you're a small business, there's always a way exactly where you are to do something to expand the opportunity, access, aperture for the military community. Whether it's, through, because no one wants to hire a veteran or military spouse more than a veteran or military spouse. No, and once you have your business, you're more likely to hire veterans and military spouses, which, that's always been our outlook that, we can hire 10,000 veterans or we can help 10,000 small veteran-owned businesses hire one person each because of their success. And that to me is, just a virtuous cycle that has no, end to it. But this last year, with the lost year of COVID, or, we know that COVID has impacted the economy from Main Street to Wall Street, but especially Main Street. But we know that there are some positive stories out there. One, Fiserv has a back to business grant to give $10,000 grants to small minority-owned businesses. One of them that we gave to this year was My Black PPE, owned by Lakeisha Cole and her husband, who is a former military spouse of the year, and which, so that, My Black PPE didn't exist before COVID. So I know that there are many stories like that out there of ingenuity and creativity to solve problems. Like I wish I could make hand sanitizer or candles on cakes that don't need to be blown out. Like there's a lot of positive stories that could come out, and new coalitions or new resources. Does anybody have any of those stories to share? And then just kind of a second, I'm going to add on because we're running out of time. Because New York City, and now James, hearing you, I know a little bit of why New York is so special. And same Robert and Wes. But what does New York really does seem to lead in a lot of the ways of veterans, whether it's having a commissioner for veteran services, or having a veteran chamber of commerce, or having, policies or incentives for companies to use veterans in their procurement. What's the secret sauce with the local ecosystem in New York City? And how can if employers that are all across the country right now, or other state officials, like how can we, selfishly, I want to create that in Georgia and in Atlanta.
Vivian, let me jump in on this. I'm going to try to be brief. I know we are limited on time. On the success stories in COVID front, I just want to just simply say areas of innovation have dovetails with areas of need for our citizenry. So you think about it, we've had issues that surfaced in COVID that involve food, housing, healthcare, employment. So oftentimes the success stories kind of touch those areas. Just want to say that. I want to speak to your other question about what is the secret sauce in NYC. To put it more broadly, an innovation ecosystem consists of really about 5 components. It's academia, it's a financial community, it is industry, it is the government / nonprofit sector, and the entrepreneurial community. One more time, I'm going to say it. It is academia, finance, industry, government / nonprofit, and entrepreneurial communities. If you can find a linkage between these different nodes, good things happen. And I think that's what you're seeing in New York City. And so for those who are looking at this from across the country, you've got to think to yourself, okay, I'm sitting in the academic bucket now, or I'm in industry, or I'm in government, nonprofit, I'm in finance, I'm an entrepreneur. I know my lane. How do I find ways to get not just into my lane, but to make sure that there's connectivity across all of these lanes? If you have one throughput way, or one sort of just link to all of these things at the same time, not just 2 of the 5, not 4 of the 5, but 5 of the 5, then good things happen. And so that's just thought there.
Vivian, I would just mention one quick thing. All that James says is true, probably, but you need a catalyst. The bigger the city, the more opportunities for a catalyst to arise. And I got to give credit. I mean, James has done things for the veteran business community that no other predecessor has done. Not speaking badly about anybody, but people say good and bad things about the current mayor. Probably the best thing he's done, one of the best things, is he selected James to be the commissioner. And he's very business oriented on behalf of veterans. And believe me, I've been here during for the past 10 years in the New York City area where that was not the case. And it was hard to find a veteran-driven initiative. And lately, it's happened with some of the great nonprofits we have. There's always been a will amongst nonprofits to help this happen. But I see good things happening, and that's bled through to Albany, where from a state level, they've decided to put this 6% set aside about 8 years ago in place for services of veteran-owned businesses. So it is a little bit of luck in there and good people coming to the surface. So kudos for James and his colleagues' leadership.
I think the common thread is veterans lead. Oh, Marco, did you want to say something?
I was going to add quick too, from the bigger picture. I think, this challenge of COVID has certainly identified that veterans, and their history of service, right, whether they have obtained that from the values and ethics, of their particular branch that now they've implemented certainly in their life, but, service towards others, right, and the passion that veterans have often towards that. And it's not driven in a selfish way, but in a selfless way, and I think this environment has taught us to achieve that, hopefully through balance in our daily life. But there certainly are some silver linings out there, and I would think that veterans can leverage that aspect and passion of service towards others. And I think we've seen that in this challenge.
I do. I remember last year around this time when some of my military spouse friends were posting, some of y'all have never had the government change your plans at the last minute, and it shows. And I thought the military community really was better prepared because we are so adaptable to change and flexibility and Semper Gumby that I think that has allowed, to shine. And to me, that's a positive coming out of COVID. Any last words, 30 seconds or less, of what do you want the audience, to take away from today? To take away from today, is LinkedIn. I hope that all of you LinkedIn with all of us as a takeaway. Wes, what do you have a takeaway or advice?
I would just say, I always like the golden rule. Treat everyone as if you like to be treated. So whether you're at the top of the heap, king dog, or you're at the bottom of the heap, you always want to probably treat people with respect and try to help everyone out, regardless of what position you are, because you may move from the bottom to the top and from the top back to the bottom. It's always good to be friendly.
a good one. Robert, Marco, James, anything?
I'll just real quick, I put it in the chat. Our website, we have a resource site for veteran business owners, nyc.gov/vetbusiness. No matter where you are, there's a lot of good information on there that can be of value to you. nyc.gov/vetbusiness. So yeah, that's.
I can maybe add, just don't forget about yourself during this challenging time, right? While we are great at serving others as veterans, we sometimes engage ourselves so much in that we forget about ourselves. So don't forget to give yourself some time too in your pursuits to achieve hopefully greatness in your entrepreneurial journey.
Listen, folks,
that.
I thought it was something very clever to say, but right now I just want to make sure if you ever have a need to talk to an advocate, to maybe a potential mentor, give me a call. My cell number, I don't believe it's in the chat. I did put a resource guide, I think, in the documents. I don't know if it migrated over or not. I'm having some challenges, so don't call me about technical issues. But call me at 516-672-6387, or text me. But better still, I'll say it again: 516-672-6387. You want to talk about business? Great. You want to talk about career decision or thought process? Let me know. Sometimes you just need a mentor. Give me a shout.
I love that, Robert. I don't know. I mean, any other call in the military community where someone would give you their personal cell. And so, as Alex Trebek would say, take care of yourselves and take care of each other. George, back over to you.
Great. Thank you so much, panelists. I thought this was an excellent panel. Really great discussion. Very much kind of captured that entrepreneurial and intrapreneurial spirit of veterans. So thank you all so much. So next up on the agenda is our networking break. That will last until 1:45 p.m. To find that, please go to the lounge area, and you are looking for the afternoon lounge sponsored by Oracle. Thank you to Oracle for sponsoring, of course. So that'll last till 1:45, and then at 1:50, we are back with another pair of breakouts, Breakout 3, Optimizing Veterans' Technical Skills, and Breakout 4, How the Federal Government is Working with Corporate America. So please keep an eye out for those. Looking forward to it. Thank you all very much.